My good friend, DC lawyer extraordinaire John Witherspoon and I have gone through the full court transcript in the fight for Prince Harry's visa application, and it leaves us with one very important question. Will the judge actually release Prince Harry's visa application to the public? Hey up everyone, it's me, Stef the Alternate, your nerdy alternative, and welcome to another dose of the Daily Nerd, where I break down the royal news and gossip of the day that's pretty much caught me eye, and oh my goodness, yes, I am here again with a DC lawyer extraordinaire, my good friend John Witherspoon. Thank you so much for joining for this video as well, and yes, John and I have read through now the full court transcript in the latest fight for Prince Harry's visa application to be made public, and yeah, does leave us with that question. Will the judge release that to us, to the public, so we can find out exactly how he answered certain particular questions? We have Judge Nichols literally making the decision as we speak. Any day now, we're hoping that he actually makes his ruling, and we're hoping it'll be the right one. But do make sure that you have watched our previous videos, because we're going to be touching upon what we discussed there in this particular video, because a lot in this court transcript that I read was the judge turning around and saying red flag, red flag, red flag city everywhere, right? Because he's like, look, you've got red flags which way you look, right? Either you got a waiver, there's a red flag. He either got a diplomatic visa, that to me is a red flag for certain reasons. This is judge, right? Or potentially, not saying he did, but there's the option that he lied. Major red flag. Now, when you've got the judge turning around and saying, look, I'm seeing problems here, potential problems, potential red flags, I mean, what do you think? I mean, you were at the hearing, you've seen it all happen and go down, now reading through the court transcript and everything. Do you think the judge will release Prince Harry's visa application to the Heritage Foundation and the public?
Well, Steph, it's going to be very interesting, and thank you for having me back and for your kind words. I do think there's a substantial possibility, and I would even put it as high as 50-50, that Judge Nichols will ask Homeland Security to make that immigration file, the so-called A file or alien file for Prince Harry, make that public in response to the request from Heritage Foundation. And a couple of good reasons for that. Number one, the three red flags that you just talked about. For a judge to characterize a situation where it's kind of like there's no good explanation for what's going on here, so there needs to be some transparency. To me, that's indicative that there is some thought going on in the judge's head that there needs to be more information that is released to the public in the name of good government. And that's really what this is all about, is good government. The other thing that's interesting is that Judge Nichols, people have mentioned he is an appointee of President Trump, so he probably has a little bit more of a conservative lean to his philosophy. He went to a relatively conservative law school, or a school that has a reputation as being a little bit on the conservative side. That's the University of Chicago Law School. And he went to Dartmouth College as an undergraduate up in New Hampshire. And that school has a reputation as being a little bit to the right of center. So if you add all of that up, plus the fact that he said specifically, by the way, if I'm interested in seeing this visa application file, this A file, I'll let you know about that pretty quickly. And then he turned around, I believe it was within 2 weeks, and said, yes, I do want to see that file. Cough it up. I want to look at it in my chambers, in my office, and see exactly what it is that we're dealing with here, and get a better understanding of what would happen if I did order that this information be released. One other thing I'll just mention as an aside, there have been some cases that Judge Nichols has been involved in, specifically involving, for the people in the United States, the January 6th protests, where people broke into the Capitol and they were charged with a number of crimes and so forth. And there were a number of those people whose criminal cases were assigned to Judge Nichols. And he was one of, I believe, 15 judges who, among whom these January 6th protesters' cases were divided up. He was the only one among all of those cases who said there are certain of these crimes that I'm not going to allow to be charged because I don't see the legitimacy of these charges. Basically, without going too far afield, what he said was these people that are charged with disrupting Congress by going into the Congress members' offices, sitting at their desks and so forth, he said, unless these people that did that actually destroyed some paperwork or went into filing cabinets and took out papers and threw them around and made it more difficult for Congress to conduct their business in that way, he said, I don't think those charges should stick. And he basically threw them out. Now, regardless of what you think of the January 6th protests or President Trump or any of that stuff, it's really irrelevant. The point I'm trying to make is this is a judge who is not afraid to go against the current and to do something that is unconventional relative to what other judges might have done. And I think that that's going to be important in this Prince Harry visa application, Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA request that Heritage Foundation has sent to the US government, and that the US government is trying to say, hey, we don't want to release the file for any number of reasons. But I think Judge Nichols, if ever there was a judge who would come along and say, hey, the file should be released in the name of transparency and in the name of good governance, and in the name of making sure that the US government and its agencies are doing the business that they should be doing and doing it the way they should be doing it. I think he's the kind of guy that could conceivably come along and say, yeah, I want that file to be released. And
No.
there's Judge Nichols Courthouse. That's the United States District Court for the District of Columbia, and that's where the hearing was held.
Yeah, that kind of looks like MI6, headquarters of MI6, as you mentioned earlier on in our messages, which made me chuckle a little bit. So I thought I'd show it up here. But
yes,
this is a thing. Let's say in the scenario, because you're saying it's 50-50, and my understanding is for a lawyer to turn around and say, oh, we're looking at 50-50 here, that's actually, you're thinking there's a strong chance, really, by saying that yeah, this is all going to be released. And so let's say it is. Judge turns around and says, yeah, we're releasing it. It's done now. DHS, you could take the L. You're the who, the hers. What do you think is then going to happen to Prince Hazza? Because a lot of people think that if this visa application is going to be released and it shows that he lied, then he's going to get kicked out like straight away. Like it's going to be done. He's going to be deported. That's it, done and dusted. Do you think that will happen? What do you think in that kind of situation?
Well, I think that's a very good question. And I think the first thing that would happen was that there would likely be an appeal filed for whichever side of the case loses. They would probably say, I'm not really happy with that. I have some good reasons to file an appeal based on the record. And by the way, when you file an appeal, I think a lot of people don't understand. The appeal is based on things that are on the record. You cannot introduce new facts, new information, unless the appeals court specifically asks for it. And that's entirely possible that could happen. But there would probably be an appeal, and those can take some time, unfortunately. And here's the other thing. This, as I sort of alluded to in other videos, this is not a case where the Heritage Foundation is trying to get Prince Harry kicked out of the United States. That is a possible outcome of the case. But what they are really trying to do is ensure that the US government is doing its business the way it's supposed to. And by the way, if Prince Harry happens to get caught in the crossfire of some of these legal proceedings, then so be it. He is not a terribly sympathetic individual, nor is his wife. You saw the way when the delinquency notice was sent out that a very high profile, this is for the Archwell Foundation, a very high profile left-leaning Democratic politician, Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, he immediately jumped to their defense. So clearly they have some friends in high places on the liberal or Democratic side of the political spectrum in the United States. So Heritage Foundation being a right-leaning, more conservative organization, if they can catch up Prince Harry and Meghan Markle in the crossfire of some legal proceedings, then that's a win for them, even if he does not get kicked out of the country. The very fact that we're having a video conversation about this case right now is a win for Heritage Foundation. It is a loss for Prince Harry and for Meghan Markle. And I think that's important for everybody to understand. And again, even if he ultimately does not get a favorable ruling for this Freedom of Information Act on his visa file, even if he would not be kicked out of the country, there has been a substantial amount of damage in terms of negative publicity that has been brought to bear on Harry. And of course, with the election coming up in 5 or 6 months in the United States, if there is a change of administration in the White House, if President Biden is no longer there, President Trump comes back for another 4 years, that throws everything into chaos because President Trump could easily say to the Department of Homeland Security, hey, you know what? This is something that's of high profile concern to me. And so we want to take a closer look at it and give it a little bit more scrutiny. And not that President Trump is going to care one way or the other overall and get himself personally inserted into Prince Harry's visa status. Certainly easy enough for the President of the United States to put his thumb on the scale and to say, hey, I would kind of prefer that this case be given some extra scrutiny. And if there's some transgression here, if he's lied on the application or if there's some other issue, I would like to see things decided in favor of him not being here in the United States. So that's a long answer to a short question, but I think all of those angles are in play. And I just want to sort of set the stage in terms of when a decision will come out, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. And I have a lot of questions people ask me from time to time about, well, why is it taking so long? It's not that this case is taking so long. It's that the cases all have to be decided in order. On the day that this case was argued in front of Judge Nichols, I believe it was the 5th or maybe the 6th different case that was in front of him. So in other words, there were 5 hours of this type of proceeding that took place on that same day. If you keep going back over time and saying, hey, 4 days a week, you're talking about 20, 25 cases a week that the judge is probably going to have to render some sort of a ruling or a decision on. Then you can understand that when everything is in the queue and being lined up for release of a decision, this is why it takes so long.
Yeah. Well, guys, with that being said, when we do get a ruling, you can bet I will be all over this, and hopefully John will be able to come back so we can discuss the outcome of the ruling. So with that being said, if you don't want to miss out on that and all the other good stuff that I've got coming up for you guys, then do make sure you subscribe to this channel, like, share, comment, all that good stuff. Big, massive thanks to my good friend John for taking the time out to collaborate with me on so many videos in regards to the court transcript. As you can appreciate, it's like a 50-odd page long kind of document. If we did it all in one video, it would have been too long. So we did a few bite-sized videos for you. So hope you all appreciated that. Until the next time when I can get my teeth back in, oh my goodness, I've been filming for way too long, guys. I need a break. Until the next time, you guys, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate your faces. Laters.